Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Can you hear
yes.
us? Ah, perfect.
Yes, I
Right
can
on
hear you
time.
now. Yeah, it's unfortunate that there's something happened in the audio system of the computer, but no, when I checked it, it's working fine, but I don't know why. It doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter. Okay, great. So perhaps just for your information also once, Dini, you have not let the people in yet, no? The participants, the attendees?
They are.
They are?
Yeah, we started already.
Ah, okay, okay, good. So then we start directly. We wait perhaps a few more minutes for everyone to join, and then we start with the webinar. Okay, good. So I think we have almost every attendee for today already in the webinar. So first of all, a warm welcome to everyone, to our participants, but also to our great group of panelists and speakers for today. Before we start with the topic, the future is green, I would just like to give a small technical introduction. So Jeannie, if you could click one slide further. Yes. So just for all the attendees, how GoToWebinar works, for those who were not able in the past 3 years to get very familiar with it, we have several functions available under GoToWebinar. There is an upper right corner. It will reflect also in some time on the screen with the PPT. There, the audio settings can be chosen. For example, whether a headset is being used or the computer audio. Please note that as a participant, you are muted by default and you won't have also the option to switch on the camera. A bit further down the dashboard, there is a small column for questions. Here you can paste all kinds of questions. These can be technical in nature, but also regarding the topic and regarding the content of the panel discussion and our speakers. In the end, we will have a small Q&A session where we will answer all your queries regarding the topic. In case we are unable to answer all the questions, we will be able to answer them later onwards via email. So today, that on the technical note, just a little bit on the background for today's webinar. Today's webinar is part of the Make in India Mittelstand program. The Make in India Mittelstand program is an initiative of the Embassy of India, which provides a platform that integrates a wide range of support services for German Mittelstand companies and family-owned enterprises. It is part of the Make in India initiative of the Indian government and is a program designed to facilitate investment, foster innovation, enhance skill development, protect intellectual property, and build in-class manufacturing infrastructure. Part of this MIIM program, as mentioned, is today's webinar with the topic, The Future is Green, Market Overview, Trends and Opportunities in India. Renewable energies is not only a very trending topic, but it also has a great significant importance in the Indo-German relationship. Just recently, Germany and India actually signed a joint declaration regarding their renewable energy partnership, in which both sides declare their intention to cooperate and collaborate for the Indo-German Green and Sustainable Development Partnership. Both sides expressed their intention to continue to increase the use of renewable energy through technical and as well financial cooperation within the framework of the second phase of the Indo-German Energy Partnership. And exactly this is what we will try to show you today in our webinar. So we will go through, we will highlight these three aspects: the Indo-German Energy Partnership, the financial cooperation that comes along with that, and also the technical cooperation that might develop on that. For that, just a quick word on the agenda. First, Mr. Deepanshu Philip, Senior Investment Specialist from Invest India, will provide us an insight to the Indo-German synergy in the sector and how it will help India to achieve the 2030 target. After that, I myself will give an overview on the incentive system in India in the sector. After that, Kai Imolauer, partner at Rödl and Partner, will give us an interesting presentation on the energy crisis in Germany and the new technologies that arise out of that, and give probably a good impact for India as well. Last but not least, we will have our great panel discussion with Dr. Bose from Enercon Wind Energy Private Limited, Siddharth Mayur from H2E, Shaji John from Ohmium, Vivek Srivastava from Waaree Energies Limited, joining Deepanshu, Philip, and Kai Imolauer for the panel discussion. I will introduce the panelists a little bit more just shortly before we start with that. With this introduction, I would like to hand over now to Mr. Srikumar Vitil, the Marketing Officer of the Embassy of India, with his welcoming remarks of the day.
Thank you, Frau Mukherjee. Good afternoon to our participants in Germany, and good evening to those in India. On behalf of our Embassy of India, I convey a very warm welcome to all of you to today's webinar focusing on the topic, The Future is Green, the market overview, trends and opportunities in India. Our thanks to Rödl and Partner, which is our knowledge partner, for organizing this webinar today on this important topic and sharing the expertise. Friends, with strong commitments to climate change and facing down the use of coal and other fossil fuels for the growing energy needs in the years to come, India presents opportunities for innovation and investment in the field of green technologies. India is already in the process of reforming its energy sector to embrace green energy. And here, adoption and promotion of green technologies in India, there is a conscious effort to reduce dependency on non-renewable energy sources and to attain nationally determined contributions as part of climate action plan to cut emissions. There have been several efforts in the country which directly and indirectly helps the adoption of green technologies. India now has a huge demand for green technologies in the country. The country also has the potential to exploit the labor intensiveness of such technologies as an opportunity to cater to employment requirements. Other factors that place India in an advantageous position are its large domestic market and having an established industry in low carbon environmental goods and services. We all know the ambitious targets set by our Honorable Prime Minister for 2030. And the good news in that is that the green energy transition in India is already well underway. Solar power plants are today cheaper to build in India than coal ones. Renewable electricity is growing at a faster rate in the country than any other major economy, with new capacity additions on track to double by 2026. Extensive policies and programs across different sectors have also promoted the adoption of green technologies for sustainable development. Sectors where policies are remarkably successful in switching to green technologies are the areas of transport and energy-intensive industrial sectors and waste management. India is particularly well placed to become a global leader in renewable batteries and green hydrogen, for instance. These and other low carbon technologies could create a market worth up to 80 billion USD in India by 2030. Green hydrogen, for instance, is expected to play a key role in achieving the net zero and decarbonizing the hard to abate sectors. India, as you all know, is aiming to become a global hub for green hydrogen production and exports. The country could easily create 5 million tons of green hydrogen demand, thereby replacing grey hydrogen in the refineries and fertilizer sectors. I would broadly say that the stars are very aligned in India. The country is one of the few markets to be in a sweet spot from an economy perspective. There are a whole range of reasons why India is one of the most interesting destinations today for foreign investments in general. Ms. Mukherjee has already walked us through on how we from our embassy could support you in your investment journey in India with the help of our Make in India Mittelstand program, which in a way is India's red carpet for the German Mittelstand. As part of this program, a whole range of webinars on topics relevant to German Mittelstand companies have already been lined out. Friends, MIIM program is currently on its 7th year, achieving 151 onboarded Mittelstand member companies and facilitating a declared investment of about euro 1.46 billion. We welcome German Mittelstand companies to take advantage of the services provided under this program for their planned investments or expansions in the country. I wish you all interesting and fruitful discussions. Thank you. Back to you, Ms. Mukherjee.
Thank you so much for this introduction and for your warm welcome. And with that, I would say we dive in directly into the topic with our first agenda point and the presentation of Mr. Deepanshu Philip from Invest India. So I would hand over the word to you now. Every panelist is free to switch off the video. You can keep it on if you want, but otherwise it's also fine if you switch it off.
Thank you, Ursula. Am I audible and is my screen visible?
Yes, it is.
Okay, give me a second. Yeah, right. Good evening to all my friends in India and a good afternoon to all my friends joining from Germany. At the outset, I must say it is an honor to share this platform with my esteemed co-panelists, Senator Bose, Mr. Vivek Srivastava, Mr. Shaji John, and Mr. Siddharth Mayur. It is my pleasure to welcome you all to this insightful discussion on renewable energy development in the context of deepening Indo-German relations, specifically the Make in India Mittelstand mechanism. I will today briefly speak on the Indo-German synergy, a vehicle to the 2030 target. India has retained its status as the fastest growing major economy despite global headwinds such as post-COVID economic recovery, coupled with geopolitical vagaries that have impacted energy prices. As per projections, in a few months, India will soon be the most populous nation, the bulk of which is going to be young. India boasts the third largest startup ecosystem, many in green technologies. A rising population and rising economy is built on rising energy demand. As a climate conscious nation, 50% of this demand will be from green energy sources by 2030. The road to 2030 is not without cooperation and collaboration. As a strategic partner with energy as a key focus sector, Germany plays a significant role in capacity building, investments, and technology advancements. India, which aims to be an energy provider for Europe, also sees Germany as a gateway to Europe. An exchange of values is important for Indian MSMEs to replicate the Mittelstand model, especially raising finance under the ESG framework and becoming robust growth of engine. Germany has been a leader in evolution of renewable energy technologies. Solar Valley in Germany or the prowess in wind energy are case in point. With geopolitical fluctuations, India is a stable destination for investments, committed to rule-based order, and become a supplier to German off-takers. The Mittelstand companies can benefit from India's long strides in the past decade and ambitious goals. Speaking of goals, India is the world's third largest producer of renewable energy. with 40% of its installed electricity capacity coming from non-fossil fuel sources. We now want to build on that and achieve the target laid out by the Honorable Prime Minister in the Panchamrit Pledge. The roadmap is LTLEDs, very recently announced at the COP27, long-term low emissions and development strategies presented by India at COP. It consists of low carbon electricity systems, low carbon transport systems, which is sustainable mobility, energy and material efficiency in buildings, CO2 removal, low emission industry system, energy efficiency, climate resilience, and of course, enhancing forest cover. To achieve these targets, what India needs now is its own version of Energiewende, which is energy transition in German. Before we discuss the vehicles that will take India to its 2030 goals, for the benefit of my audience, I would like to show India's potential for a diverse and holistic renewable energy basket. We have a long 7.5-kilometer coastline that is ready to support a wind and solar powered green hydrogen export hub. These are in proximity to 8 states with strong solar and wind energy potential, with updated policies and forward linkages that help in sound investment strategy for investors. For organizations in the field of distributed resources, there is huge demand in hilly areas to ensure 24/7 power for all. And in the eastern side, with coal, steel, and mining clusters, there is a big market for decarbonizing technologies, including CCUS. Although we have sector experts with us, I will present a subsector snapshot very briefly. We have the mature but growing market of wind. The Ministry of New and Renewable Energy has just rolled out the RFS for India's first offshore project, and the target of 30 gigawatt by 2030. Along with the repowering scheme, I believe that this is going to revive and bring in new energy for the wind sector. From times of solar being a distant dream for MSMEs to becoming now one of the lowest tariff, seeing a 15 times dip in the last decade, solar in India has now become a very attractive option for CNI to meet its energy needs. The hybrid policy, and with policies on batteries soon to be expected, round-the-clock RTC power in renewables will soon be a reality. The Modhera Sun Village recently announced is a precursor to that journey. Hydroelectric, green hydrogen, and geothermal are truly renewable sources as they address the intermittency challenges. Hydrogen, an energy vector, has minimal environmental impact, high energy density, and can address the gap between energy-rich regions and the energy-poor regions. At a nascent stage, still, several states have rolled out policies to maintain our early mover advantage. To achieve the Energiewende, the road is set, and so is the destination, which brings me now to the wheels of this progression. The first vehicle is the policy. Our energy policies are focused on both manufacturing under the Atmanirbhar Bharat campaign, indigenizing renewable energy paths, and also on large-scale deployment. The FDI automatic route of 100% PLI schemes as a supply-side measure to achieve that ambitious goal of 30 gigawatt of year-on-year addition is what is needed to achieve the 2030 goal. Reforms in open access, off-grid applications, PM Kusum, the rooftop portal very recently, aim at enlarging the market for projects both big in capacity and in number. The other wheels in this will be the German support given to India. Financing to support adoption of new technologies in hard-to-abate areas require roughly $270 billion by 2030. These investments will be spread only across solar, wind, and battery storage, not counting the other sectors. So there is a huge demand for investments. The other mechanism that we have witnessed is, of course, by the work done by GIZ at the developmental front. At a strategic level, the biennial intergovernmental consultations and multilateral platforms like ISA ensure strong RE development across and beyond countries. Capacity building through skilling for green jobs is a necessary target for India in order to leverage its demographic dividend. Due to paucity of time, I will briefly present a few success stories that we have in the Make in India Mittelstand program. We have already talked about how 151 companies are being facilitated through this program. Senvion and Verbio are two companies which have demonstrated that India is a very sound option for Mittelstand companies to replicate their model. Today, Germany, India, and the world face what I call an energy trilemma. There is a need for energy security, environmental empathy and consciousness, and energy equity. And to realize this marriage between German Mittelstand companies and the India core, Invest India, I will have to plug in, will always play a key role along with Rödl and partners, helping anyone and everyone who wishes to make India a second home for their business. Thank you.
Thank you so much. My video is back. Great. Very interesting and very good summarized overview, I would say. Thank you so much for your time and for presenting this to us today. Good. Then it is my turn now with an overview on incentives for German companies. Just give me 1 second so I can manage that the right screen is being presented. Yes. So I hope my screen is visible to everyone. And I will start directly looking at the time. I will skip some slides because they are a bit repetitive to what Deepanshu already said. So for everyone who wants to read on this topic later onwards again, please feel free to look into the presentation. I have summarized the climate goals and a few charts on where we stand in India. Just one thing to highlight, because the plan was from India to achieve until the end of 2020, 275 gigawatt installed renewable energy capacity. So we are almost there. So I found figures in October, which were stating 164. That is very good. Let's see if we can manage to achieve the target by the end of this year. I think the Indian government is working very strongly on that. And one interesting fun fact that I want to share with everyone also today is that it was the climate goal of India to achieve 40% of the electricity mix from non-fossil fuels. And that was a target for 2030, which was mentioned during the COP21. And actually in November 21, it already achieved. So India is really after its targets, and so far it's going good. One thing that I would like to highlight a little bit further and want to elaborate is the topic hydrogen, green hydrogen, because that is a topic that is currently really going on in India, and a lot of discussions, a lot of news you find on that. So on the 15th August 21, the National Hydrogen Mission was launched in India by our Prime Minister Modi, and in February 21, the National Hydrogen Policy was framed and published. And this National Hydrogen Policy is having a lot of aspects regarding green hydrogen that shall be implemented in India. I wouldn't say it's like a framework policy. It definitely has aspects from different areas, but it's not a framework because it has very detailed aspects already regulated. So first of all, the term green hydrogen is defined. I think that is fair enough. But also what is mentioned in the green hydrogen policy is that there shall be a waiver for interstate transmission charges for 25 years for projects that are commissioned before the 30th June 25. Also, aspects like open access within 15 days of the receipt of complete application shall be granted. There shall be allotment of land in renewable energy parks, and special manufacturing zones shall be established. Then one interesting point is that green hydrogen manufacturer can bank their unconsumed renewable power up to 30 days with the distribution company and can take it back whenever it is required. Then there shall be connectivity to the grid on priority basis. The manufacturing of green hydrogen shall also contribute towards the renewable purchase obligation compliance. There shall be bunkers near the ports for the storage of green hydrogen that are used for export, for shipping purposes. And the Ministry of New and Renewable Energy wants to also implement a single portal for all the statutory compliances that is required for a manufacturer in the green hydrogen sector. So these are very good points, very interesting points. But why have I put there a question mark on my slide is because it is not clear yet how it will be implemented. So since these are bullet points, which are very valid points, but these will now need to be implemented in a scheme, in a policy, in a notification, in an act, and that still needs to be developed. So the legal framework for the policy, for the implementation still needs to be adapted. But India is definitely working on this topic, and it's definitely something that the Indian government is looking onto on a priority basis. Now coming to the actual topic of my presentation, which is the incentive system in India. So here I will give you an overview of the incentive system actually, because there's not just one incentive that a renewable energy sector can avail. There are different kind of incentive schemes and policies that totally depends on each business model of a company. So this is nothing that can be mentioned generalized. Is something very, very individualized. It's something that even sometimes needs to be negotiated with the state governments. So here, just for your understanding, an overview about the system of incentives that a company from that renewable energy sector can avail. So very broadly speaking, there are incentives on the central level from the central government, and there are incentives on the state level from the state government. So on the state level, I just would like to highlight one policy on an example basis. So every government has its own state policy, trade or incentive policy, state policy. I would now speak about Tamil Nadu. Tamil Nadu is a state that is doing a lot in the sector of renewable energy. For example, First Solar is just setting up its manufacturing plant. So it is definitely an emerging country with regard to renewables. The Tamil Nadu state policy is a policy of the government of Tamil Nadu to attract and promote the manufacturing companies in Tamil Nadu. It is applicable for projects establishing or expanding industrial units, industrial parks, even R&D projects, warehousing and logistics is covered under the Tamil Nadu state policy. Basically, it shall facilitate the annual growth rate with regard to manufacturing units in the state, and shall create employment opportunities in the state. In order to actually avail an incentive or a benefit under that state policy, first step would be to categorize the project. So the policy is defining several kind of categories. There's mega, sub-large, large, extra mega, so different categories which depend on the investment volume and the investment tenure in total. Once the category is being defined, different kind of benefits would be available. So not for every category, the same benefits would be available. So obviously for a mega project, there would be more benefits than just for a sub-large project. But overall, you can say different kind of benefits are available. For example, capital subsidies, SGST reimbursement, land cost subsidy, training subsidy, electricity duty subsidy, and one interesting point is that I would like to highlight is a green industry subsidy. So that is a subsidy that is giving a benefit for the cost of setting up an environmental protection infrastructure of the manufacturing unit. So in case you're setting up a manufacturing unit which builds also at the same time an environmental protection infrastructure, then you would be availing the subsidy on under the Tamil Nadu state policy. So even on these levels, the Indian governments are thinking green, you can say. Then speaking about sector-specific incentives on the central level, that is what I have captured on the right side of my slide. So there we have project-specific incentives, which are really depending again on the sector that you're in. There are different incentives for solar, for wind, for biomass. So here I'm just giving a few examples for you so you get an idea about what is actually available in India. So in solar sector, I must say, the incentives there are for government tenders, rather, only Indian companies, so companies that are established in India, registered in India, which are on an approved list, are actually now allowed to participate at the government tenders. And further incentives will be only provided via the agencies for solar. Further, only after fulfillment of certain criteria, and usually it is more of a reimbursement level. So at the end of a project, after the project is fulfilled, it is commissioned and the plant is already up and running for a certain period, you would be eligible for the incentives which would be then coming from the agency and not directly from the government. Further, in order to receive the incentive, it has to be a pre-approved project from the Ministry of New and Renewable Energy. Looking at the wind sector, here we have also other incentive benefit schemes, which is, for example, a reduced interest rate that can be availed from IREDA. And in the biomass sector, we have especially for those biomass plants that are implemented with next to sugar mills, is again a different incentive package available, which was launched in, I think, 2018. It was a scheme because the government saw there is actually a huge potential for sugar mills to have their own biomass plant. So there again, you have different kind of incentives. Talking about multilateral and bilateral funding options, these are obviously funding options from development institutions. These could be IREDA, IFC, KfW, Asian Development Bank, Overseas Private Investment Corporation, but also directly from the German government, so specifically for development projects of the German government in India. That could be from BMZ or GIZ, etc. There we also have different institutions that are providing incentives. And then I would like to highlight the PLI scheme in India. That is the Production Linked Incentive Scheme. Under this, just recently, $2.57 billion was granted for the manufacturing of photovoltaic. But the PLI scheme is available for all these target sectors here that are mentioned. So the Indian government launched this PLI scheme in order to incentivize these target sectors, which they really want to focus on. But again, this is an incentive that can be availed for companies coming to India or are already in India and setting up a manufacturing unit. So this is for manufacturing of the goods which are covered under these target sectors. So under the PLI scheme, there are different investment criteria defined, different sales criteria defined, and based on that, a company can avail these incentives after application and after submitting proof that these criteria are being met. So again, here strong focus of the Indian government towards Make in India. A lot of incentives in the renewable energy sector are always with the focus of shifting the manufacturing to India, having India develop from currently more service hub to a manufacturing hub and even an exporting hub. And this is where companies can really get into the incentive schemes. Now, I just want to highlight some other promotion tools that make it interesting for German companies to coming to India. Very briefly, I'm just touching on this topic, looking at the time. India has introduced a reduced income tax rate of 17.16% for manufacturing companies. That was a huge step from earlier 25 or 30%, depending on which category you're in, to down to 70.16 effective rate, I must say. And so a big development from the tax perspective. On the financing options, one big step in general was in India to open up the external commercial borrowings, the ECB, which are shareholder loans, which provide Indian companies to do a lot of financing via the group, because now a group company can provide a shareholder loan more or less easy to India. Then India opened up also for green bonds. So green bonds are available as well. On the customs side, not really an incentive, but again in the direction of Make in India. I must say regarding the customs duty. So customs duty, especially in the solar sector, were increased significantly because there was always an issue with having very cheap products from China coming into India. So the custom duty was significantly increased, which is now on 25% on solar cells and 40% on imported modules. Customs bonded warehouse, again, a very interesting aspect for companies which want to manufacture in India but focus on the export. So whatever is manufactured in a custom bonded warehouse and then exported again out of the country is exempted from customs duty. So a big step here. And then also other aspects to promote, especially the renewable energies, are the introduction of the renewable purchase obligation. So having said that, I just want to close with one last remark. That is that there are a lot of benefits and incentives a company can avail in India, especially if it is interested in setting up its own manufacturing unit in India. And however, this is a very individualized portfolio that needs to be developed even while negotiating with state governments. It's it's not an easy topic, but a very interesting topic, and it's definitely worth looking into while setting up a business plan. So that is from my side, and then I would hand over to my colleague Kai Imolauer. Kai, are you there? Yes, perfect.
Yes. Just let me see. Can you see already the presentation?
Yes, it's there.
It's there. Okay. Yeah. Then I'm going to start, I think. Well, good evening to India. Of course, good afternoon in Germany. So my name is Kai Imolauer. I'm heading the renewable energy team in the energy industry advisory department here in Germany, but I'm also working on an international basis, mainly also in regard to KfW project. So just 2 weeks ago, I was also in Eastern Africa, and as Ursula just asked me if I could give you a very short spotlight on this particular issue of energy crisis in Germany and maybe new technology. Of course, I had no doubts, because in general, of course, the energy transition is an international issue, and we have to join forces wherever it is, let's say, on this globe, and of course also realize the business opportunities that come from. In my presentation, you can see the title. I will give you a very brief, of course, insight into the current situation, let's say, from the energy crisis. I will speak a little bit about hydrogen strategy, EU Germany, hydrogen funding programs, and then I'll also jump over to some new technologies that I see. So that there will be a lot of them probably coming up during this very interesting and very important decade that we have in front of us, but I just wanted to highlight some of them. And then I just conclude, of course. So if we jump into the current situation, of course, you're aware that we are facing probably the largest energy crisis since Second World War. You can see here the pipelines coming from Russia, which are defect due to a bomb attack in the Baltic Sea, which have been switched off, or even in Southeastern Europe, which have been restricted. And this, of course, at a moment where the complete energy supply for Europe and Germany especially also was depending on more or less 50% on Russian gas. So this, of course, led to this very critical situation coming from the Ukrainian war, and the German ministry, the German government, of course, is trying to find solutions, let's say, to get over that. And one thing, of course, was that Germany really started quite early in this year already to purchase LNG. We're going to have particular LNG terminals even, and what I just showing here is the gas storage level, which became kind of a new mark, let's say, new number, as it was in the pandemic, the incidence of the COVID infection. Now, of course, all Germany is looking at this gas storage level. It's quite high, as you can see. So it's still at 100%. This is also due to a very warm October and very mild temperatures now is November, but of course it will decline now with the winter coming. The essential impacts, of course, have been that due to this restriction, of course, there was a lot of, I may say, fear into the market. So I'm just showing you right now this incredible increase of the gas prices. And I may say, as you can see, I mean, we have here the start of the Ukrainian war, but even before we had already a very volatile and very increasing prices for gas. This was really just already caused, say, the experts by climate change, because we had a very tough drought in South America. So the South American countries started to purchase coal and also LNG from the world market. And this already, and the Chinese, let's say, recovery from the COVID pandemic just led to a shortage for LNG and coal. So this already increased the price. And then with the Ukrainian market, of course, the market just showed up with the fear, let's say, for supply. And so the purchases got even to these very high prices. This also had an impact on the electricity prices. I know a lot of lines, because we have also here the future prices in there. I just wanted to show that we are really climbed up to an absolutely incredible power prices. This is due to the merit order regulation that we have on the European power markets. And despite this merit order, of course, these very high gas and coal prices led to this substantial increase. There have been a lot of things that have been done. So the discussions are ongoing that there will be a change in the market model, which will fix, for example, the price, so limit down the price for particular generators, like, for example, PV, wind, also lignite, hydro, and so on. So to really cut down, let's say, this merit order effect that usually would apply. And on the same side, we are waiting, or we have now already the regulations that there will be a certain payment, let's say, from the state to the particular citizens, because, of course, above all, socially weaker households, of course, will have difficulty to afford these quite high energy prices. And just to give you an indication, because I just received it today, so for me, for example, it is double the price in electricity, and also 2.5 to 2.5 times, let's say, the price for gas. So you can imagine that this for particular households really can be critical. So the crisis is not over, because I also pointed out that you can see here in the particular future deals that the level of price definitely has reached a complete another range. And now, of course, it's very hard to say how this will develop. Most of the modeler of the power market just say, okay, it will of course decline, and it will decline mainly with the increase of renewable energies. So we've really got now, even before, let's say, there was already discussion due to the climate change and climate policy in Germany to really increase very strongly the installation of PV and renewable energy. So you can see here that the objective for PV is 22 gigawatt peak per year, and aiming to get 215 gigawatt in 2030. And for wind, it's about 10 gigawatt per year, and aiming at 115 gigawatt. And of course, gas, well, yes, it is anyway now technically spoken almost impossible to even return to that situation like last year. So for the import of Russian gas, of course, there is a lot of investment also in LNG. There is new contracts to be made, which also bring their difficulties, because the LNG sellers, let's say, always want to have very long-term contracts, which of course are a kind of contradiction to the transition to a hydrogen-based energy supply. So this just shows one more time, so you can see, so only in the next 8 years, let's say, it's about 3 times the capacity to be installed for PV, and more or less the double for wind onshore. This all has also its difficulties in the German market. I don't want to go too much in that, but the overall objective is to get to 80% of renewable energies on power side, so not the primary energy, but on power side to 2030. So hydrogen, of course, as a carrier for energy, this is always quite important. Turn on some light. This is always quite important because, of course, hydrogen is only an energy carrier. It's not a source like oil or whatever. Sometimes this is still mixed up. And here we also have clear strategies. On the one hand, from the European Union, let's just show that up here with particular clear aims to get 6 gigawatt of electrolyzers, for example, and production of 1 million tons to 2024, and a large-scale deployment of green energy. So it is a clear European strategy on one hand, and we even have the German strategy, and I just wrapped it up here. So it was presented in June 2020. Currently, it's already being modified, I think also for more ambitious objectives till 2030. And you see that in fact, it is also the rising the demand. So it's really talked also to the industry, to the refineries, to the steel industry, to see how on the one side the demand of the market can work out, and then the other side, of course, where this hydrogen can come from. And a very important figure, I think, is here that Germany definitely realizes that with our area, with our potential for renewable energies, it will be important to self-supply Germany to very strong industries with hydrogen by our own. So it's an 80% share for imports already forecasted in this strategy paper. If we look now at hydrogen, just playing it a little bit through also, what we're talking about, of course, very important is also the transport. So of course, pipeline could be an option. There are even, I just read that Saudi Arabia, for example, is developing at least plans really to put a pipeline through the Mediterranean Sea. Of course, we have ammonia as a further possibility. We have liquefied hydrogen. I would even add also methanol, because methanol also could be very important for big container ships and so on. And I just wanted to highlight also here from a German smaller, medium-sized company. It's called Hydrogenius. I inserted the website address here. That's a liquid organic hydrogen carrier they developed to store H2 in a liquid, let's say, and then dehydrogenate it at the port. They are doing a lot of research in this regard, and I think coming over now in this field of hydrogen also to the funding programs, I think one was already mentioned. I think very, very important one, because it contains a lot of money, and it's really open exactly for this import of green hydrogen from developing and emerging countries like India. So the idea, of course, is that the financing of any hydrogen plant abroad will be quite difficult. So the idea is that these companies will get, for example, in India, a 10-year hydrogen purchase agreement, and this then will be sold on a 1 year. And this price difference that may occur will be covered by the HINCO agency. So finally, it is just a strong incentive to really push the market to being developed. And yes, there's really money involved. You can see here for the first funding window for these 3 particular side products, a Power to X product, we're speaking about 300 million each, so up to 900 million. You really to see that projects coming up. And the complete funding window was in 21 even enlarged to 3.6 million euros. So you see there's really money on the table, let's say, to get these processes started. And there are some criteria. So I'm going to just switch and get to the PDX program. This was, in fact, only presented now on COP27. It's a kind of a joint effort also from the KfW, from the development countries, to have a clear financing program in place for any Power to X development. So it's PDX Development Fund called, and you see the object to the fund is to promote project and development in emerging countries where there is great RE potential, of course, to generate projects, let's say, to incentivize projects to get into this PDX production, because everybody knows that there's kind of really trouble to get these started. And as you can see, this is also not a few money, it's €500 million in there. This is a little bit the process. I'm going to skip that also. It runs also an application, and of course there's certain monitoring involved, but you can see that it's really a joint effort by the KfW banks like IPEX and above all DEG. I come over to these new technologies where we just see now also from the development in Germany, let's say, besides, of course, for example, the heat sector, yeah, where, of course, the heat pump will be one of the core elements. I just selected some, so I think there could be a lot of more of them, but just let me just rush through them. So one thing is, for example, bifacial photovoltaics, which just can be set up like you can see here. So it is a joint usage also of agricultural areas. For example, we are even aiming at our headquarters, also here in Nuremberg, to install something like that. Just as the railway at site, so we can use that instead of a normal fence, let's say, and it will produce more than 100,000 kilowatt hours for our own consumption. There is another thing, that's solar blinds. I think also very interesting technology to just use the blinds, let's say, to generate energy. We have a lot of development ongoing for agri PV, also coming above all, I think, from the droughts that we also had to suffer in Germany. And you see here, for example, one example how this, of course, can be combined, and of course, in all kind of areas where you have the problems of drought, where you have irrigation, for example, as an element for agricultural production. I think it will be very essential. From all these renewable energies, being wind or, of course, PV, we will have much more volatility in the grid. So one thing that is really also on the rise is a kind of peak shaving. Peak shaving means here that we have much more batteries installed and much more load controlled right in the energy industries to avoid very high peaks in the prices and in the grid. So the grid itself, we'll speak about that later a little bit, will have to become much more intelligent. Just highlighting also this battery issues. This is another German company. It's Jena Batteries, because one of the issues of the batteries, of course, that there's a very high demand from the electric vehicles. So above all the critical raw materials, like, for example, lithium, will be used above all due to the very high load factor that you have here per weight. So you have, well, of course, with a lithium battery, you have a very high factor of electricity that you can store in relation to weight. But here, for example, Jena Batteries comes with a stationary redox flow battery, and as you can see, there are no critical raw materials needed. You can imagine it's a kind of 2-tank system, which is used here with a saline inside, and it really also can work up to 10 megawatt hours of energy, and I think it was 2 megawatt or here it's mentioned 5 megawatts, which can be developed here. And this is quite important, and because also India will get to this moment how to levelize this particular volatile generation. And here just also a little bit of view from the regulators. So what they are looking is in the same context of a decentralized renewable energy based energy supply system, that we definitely have to increase flexibility. And here it's called, in Germany, it's called the Redispatch 3.0. We had already Redispatch 2.0, which was dedicated much more on the larger generators. But as you can see here, this really goes down to heat pumps, electric cars, etc. So the idea is with an Internet of Things, with an artificial intelligence. So let's say with digitalization, to have this decentralized power supply system really controlled in that way that we don't have too much losses, but that we are using all flexibility options in this market. This will still have some time, of course. It was now just published in October recently, and this will take some time to implement it, to install it, but it's just the way forward. And of course, this also will be options for India. So just to conclude, I hope I'm still quite in time. So I think energy crisis, like said, besides of course the engagement of the German government, really boosts now this completely increase in renewable energy technologies for, let's say, power generation. I didn't speak so much about the heat now, it's pretty much the same. And I think, yes, there is now really a rush and there is a good pressure for new technologies to come up. And I think this will just help the world, and of course probably also India, to realize, yes, this a little bit more complex, decentralized grid and power and energy supply that we will see. And hydrogen, like just highlighted, will play definitely an important role here. From our side, maybe Rödl, I just wanted to highlight, we have also a platform. It's a renewable energy platform for investors, for example, coming from abroad. So it's a platform, kind of a matchmaking. We also created some tools that's more on the German market. Please check out also our publication e-news, where you can get a lot of information about all particular countries. And we have even a country overview. So we are, from our side, let's say, we try to do our best to really foster the development also. I think that was it all. I hope I kept more or less the time, Ursula. Thank you.
No, perfectly fine. Thank you so much, Kai. I'm always happy to hear about the German perspective as well, because, you know, the energy crisis is very dominant in Germany right now. In India, we have a little bit of crisis, but obviously not as significant as in Germany. So it's very interesting to see the comparison. So thank you. And now to our last point of today's webinar, the panel discussion, for which I would request every panelist to switch on the camera as of now. And whenever I request you to say something, you can also unmute yourself and obviously react. So perfect. The only participant or panelist that cannot switch on the video today is Mr. Mayur, because he's traveling. So we are apologizing him for that. And now I would just quickly introduce everyone for today. I would start with Dr. Bose from Enercon Wind Energy Private Limited. He is Managing Director of Enercon Wind Energy Private Limited and is known as a hardcore global sustainability advocate specialized in the wind energy domain. Since the last 4 years, he is driving the force of Enercon Wind Energy, which is a wholly owned subsidiary of Enercon Group in Germany, being the largest privately owned wind turbine makers in the world. Dr. Bose started in India a greenfield project and developed the Indian wholly owned subsidiary to a global export hub of the group. Dr. Bose has been campaigning for sustainability, be it energy conservation, carbon emission reduction, energy efficiency, and now for green energy as the most sustainable source. Coming to Siddharth Mayur, founder of H2E. He is a real first generation social entrepreneur with over 24 years of experience in international ventures in clean energy, real estate and agriculture, credited with forming the vision, foundation, and core strategy of H2E. H2E has a base in India with subsidiary companies in Germany and Switzerland, which work on different areas of the net zero value chain. H2E Power Systems is a product of social vision, German engineering, and Indian entrepreneurship. Coming to Mr. Shaji John, Senior Vice President of Ohmium India Private Limited, and he is responsible for the business development and sales since June 2022. Previously, in his last assignment with L&T, Mr. John was responsible for developing renewable business and ensuring that L&T is well placed to capture a considerable market share in the emerging clean energy space. He was responsible for several solar projects, hydrogen projects, and wind projects. Ohmium is an international green hydrogen company which is manufacturing electrolyzers in India and is working towards establishing India as a global hub for green hydrogen generation. Coming to Mr. Vivek Srivastava, Group Chief Executive Officer of Waaree Energies Limited. He is a global business professional with versatile experience of 3 decades with industry leaders in petroleum, mobility, manufacturing, and new energy. Having done multiple leadership hats in strategy, business development, marketing, sales operations, program management, etc., with several First in India initiatives, he is currently leading the transformative journey of India's foremost solar manufacturing and service company to leadership in new energy with global footprint. Just one sentence also to Waaree Energies Limited. It has India's largest solar panel manufacturing capacity of 9 gigawatt, and its plants are in Surat and Obegaon in Gujarat. Coming to Mr. Deepanshu Kaul Philip from Invest India, he was already sweet to give a presentation today. He is Senior Investment Specialist Energy at Invest India and is an electronics and communication engineer. As a solar energy developer with his own business and consultant, he expanded his business across 3 states and took up challenging projects across C&I and residential sector before joining Invest India to work on investment facilitation for energy projects. He worked in Snapdeal as a business analyst briefly and was part of key business strategies. Having built an MSME from scratch, he understands both the challenges and the potential of MSMEs in India's growth story. He thus hopes to highlight the role of Mittelstand in India's renewable energy boom. Coming to my colleague Kai Imolauer, he is partner at Rödl and Partner, sitting in our headquarters in Nuremberg. He is an economic engineer and is advising for 20 years investors in the field of renewable energy projects like wind, PV, and geothermal. The transformation of the energy system, its challenges, new ways and technologies are his interest and his focus. Good. Thank you to all of you to be part of our panel discussion today. And I know it's a bit unusual, but I would like to start with a brainstorming activity. So this brainstorming activity is really just to warm everyone up and get a glimpse in everyone's mind. The idea is that I'm saying a word and then you say the first word that comes into your mind. So as an example, I say flower and the answer would be bee. Or I say water and the answer would be ocean. So I hope the concept is clear. It's also just a very short exercise for everyone. So Dr. Bose, I would start with you. And your word is self-sufficiency.
Sorry, can you repeat one more time?
Yeah, your word is self-sufficiency.
No, I think my mic has a little trouble. I'm not able to keep clear.
Self-sufficiency. Or we can try a different one. How about sustainability?
Sustainability. So I would put it this way, that it's like a coconut tree.
Coconut tree. Okay, good. Interesting answer. So Mr. Mayur, for you the word is climate change. Oh, I think he left already.
Ursula,
Sorry.
Mr. Mayu had to
Yeah,
leave already.
thank you.
No.
Okay, good. Then I would give this to Kai. Kai, climate change, your word.
Yeah. Greatest threat for humanity.
Okay, good answer. Mr. John, for you it's recycling.
Yeah, so recycling paper.
Paper, yes. Mr. Srivastava, what about profitability?
Responsibility.
Ah, good answer. And Mr. Philip, what about innovation for you?
Innovation, I would say, is what brings the word that comes to my mind is youth.
Okay, very good. Yeah, interesting. Nice. So I like that idea. I know it's a bit unusual, but I think it was a great start for everyone. Thank you so much for your inputs. And now I would start with the formal part of the panel discussion with the first question that I would request Mr. Srivastava to answer first. The question would be, what do you think was the turning point in India for the renewable energy sector? And what was our biggest achievement so far?
For India, the biggest turning point has been the realization long back, much before the world actually popularized it and started talking about it, the need for it. I think it goes back to the 2009 policy making, whereby we laid the foundation that there was nothing to go to 100 gigawatt on renewable energy with various compositions. And secondly, the realization that long ago that rather than quibble about who is responsible globally, let us do the best what we can do to contribute to the world, agnostic of what is happening in the world. So let us be more responsible and responsive global citizens than get into the battle and war about who is contributing to climate change more, who is more responsible, and who needs to do more. So it's about what we say, the responsibility begins from me. And as a global citizen, that's what I think India, leave alone the diplomacy part, but in the entire climate change and the debate on environment, etc., responsibility, etc., that's been something that's come out clearly, not only in the policy, but also in the deeds. I mean, not to shy away from the fact that whatever funding is supposed to be there at a global level may or may not have materialized, but India has marched ahead and exceeded the targets, be it the reduction of carbon, be it the addition of renewable energy as a proportion to the total. So I think those are not just milestones, those are demonstrations of the true intent. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your answer. Mr. Philip, would you like to add something from your perspective? What was India's biggest achievement so far in the renewable energy sector?
I think I won't differ from what Mr. Vivek has said. I would only like to build on that. That not just renewable energy sector, we took a very holistic view of sustainability, not just as far as energy is concerned, but through the NAPCC mechanism, even addressing things like sustainable Himalayan ecosystem. Right now, coming back a full circle, that's when I actually began, learning about sustainability. We just launched the national bioenergy program also. And, in my discussions with MNRE, even though I come from a solar background and I am advocating for bioenergy right now, the interesting thing is that it hasn't received the light, the attention that it deserves. Because if you think about it, it actually addresses one of the most number of SDG goals out of the 17 that we have, and will actually address issues in sectors like even agriculture, and build markets and ecosystems that we never really imagined, and has positive externalities even in the social dimension. So I feel we've come a long way from just seeing renewable energy sources as mechanisms to reduce costs or in MSMEs, or to now finally being conscious about it. And in the coming times, I do see that legacy issues of discoms also being resolved with modernization of grids. So I think I'm really excited about where we are going to go, and I think the turning point, we'll see more turning points in India's journey. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you to both of you. And both of you also already picked a little bit on my next question, which I would like Dr. Bose to answer first. My question would be, Dr. Bose, what is your opinion? What can India do to promote Make in India in the renewable energy sector more? Basically, what is the biggest challenge currently for the industry to do Make in India, to come to India and do manufacturing here? And what would you recommend that is being implemented to overcome that challenge?
Thank you, Ursula. Good evening to everybody. Good afternoon to all the friends from Germany. Just the answer is that the Make in India or the self-reliant, if I correlate these two, yes, we as a company, we started first we thought we will invest our own money and start our own own manufacturing facilities. But subsequently, when we closely evaluated, we found that Atmanirbhar Bharat or self-reliant India would be a much more interesting program whereby we will be able to achieve quite a few things. Number one is uplifting the Indian Mittelstand companies. That is one thing we really focused, and the result is our generation located in the middle of nowhere in a sleepy village in Tamil Nadu, a place called Erode. I was last week there, and I was told that before we started our plant over there, it was only land cost was only 800,000 rupees per acre of land. Now it has gone 10 times more. So we could bring so many ancillary companies there, the wire manufacturing companies, the cable manufacturing. We could bring a lot of ancillary units over there. So the economic and ecological development goes hand in hand, and therefore here we are not even dependent on any of the government subsidies or anything, but this very, very interesting Mittelstand companies, Indian entrepreneurs, they came forward and said, we wanted a long-term contract, the critical equipment and the training and development for our people. The rest, everything, they did it. And last week we have closed the 60 million euro export from India only from our generator plant within 5 months of our production. So that was a very, very historic achievement. And the same as now our tower plant in Tamil Nadu in Trichy is ready. Now our blade plant in Andhra, in Nellore is ready. The same business model, only 10 years of stringent contract, very clear understanding between, and they will invest for the land and building, and we support them with critical equipment and escrow account for their working capital. So this is working out really well. Of course, there are extremely big challenges for consistency of people, quality. Therefore, we have also installed a lot of our German colleagues over there in these facilities for continuous training, development, and quality assurance. So this is giving us a very strong return, and hopefully, if everything goes well with all the 3 plants, next year we should be able to achieve 300 million euro export from India. Now, coming back, one of the major challenges as far as India is concerned, I am still, I have many, many real challenges as far as the Indian wind energy sector is concerned. So this is starting with, until 2016, the situation was different with the feed-in tariff, and after that, it has literally, the last year, if you really look at it, it is less than 2 gigawatt installation. So when we talk about by 2030, we wanted to install nearly 140 gigawatt installation, which means from 2023, we need to install 20 gigawatt every year. So the current situation is the gap is so huge. So there are really not extraordinary policies in place. How do we do it? The turbine makers like us, we are only focusing at the moment on export. That means we are considering India as a global export hub. And because of the low tariff, because of many hurdles, the land evacuation, local politicians' interference, grid problems, many challenges. So unless and until the government is coming forward and making extremely stringent policies, it will be really a challenge for achieving 140 gigawatt by 2030. So now, for example, the recycling policy, we have been discussing this since so many years. Now all the small turbines are standing in the class A wind site, which is 800 kilowatt or 1 megawatt. So since we don't have a recycling policy, repowering policy in place, where we can replace these old turbines which are over 20 years old and put a 5 megawatt turbine, then we are talking about 5 times more power production. So, and then now the question comes is, what about our recycling policy? And that's what exactly I told, that a wind turbine is more like a coconut tree. There is no part you will find it for waste. You can recycle the entire turbine. So whether it is the composite material, that is the blades, or the nacelles and the spinners and the tower, everything can be recycled. So I think there has to be a very strong policy in place in recycling, repowering, land evacuation, grid availability. All these things needs to be put it together and bring the stakeholders together. Then absolutely possible to achieve.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Bose. I just have to interrupt because you actually already took 2 of my future questions and answered them in one shot.
Okay.
But no, they're all good. I'm very happy, very interesting. And since these were anyways questions,
I saved your time.
You saved my time, exactly. You did my job, basically. No.
Thank you.
So coming back to the question, with regard to what can India do to promote Make in India in the renewable energy sector further. Mr. John, what would be your view on that, coming from the hydrogen energy sector?
Yeah, so thank you so much for that question, and good evening or good morning to everybody. In renewable sector, if you see, already there are Make in India in successful way implemented in various components like the DC cables or the inverter duty transformers and the inverters itself. These are already done well in the country today. Most of these are manufactured in India only. The major hurdle for now going this step of Make in India is the modules. Modules like Waaree is there and a few other companies are there. They are making the modules. But when you look backward, the cell, wafer, and poly, I think that is where there is more to be done to make it really Make in India, complete value chain in India. We had delayed that process now since 2009 to today. For 13 years, we don't have any capacity of polysilicon, any capacity of wafer, and a very small capacity of cell. In my view, the same mistake we should not repeat in the new emerging industry, which is hydrogen. There are enough examples, and in fact, Ohmium is the best example. Our promoters, our CEOs, they have bet completely on this country, India, to see that we make a complete Make in India hydrogen electrolyzer. That can be repeated by many entrepreneurs and many industrialists in India today, so that we don't rely on any machines outside India. We should be self-sufficient. The way Europe today is facing trouble in terms of importing gas or importing any other form of energy from outside, India should not have that kind of issues what Europe is facing or what India has faced in terms of importing modules in solar industry. So I think the best way to do is that most of these electrolyzers and the components thereof should be completely developed in India. And the best example, like I told, our own company is doing that. So it can be a showcase for the rest of the world for how it can be done in India.
Okay, thank you. And since you're already speaking of your own company, I have a question for you. So Elon Musk, everyone knows him. He once famously laughed off the statement that the future of the world and of energy is with hydrogen. So being from that sector, what would you say to Mr. Elon Musk himself to contradict him on that point?
See, my view is that the renewable energy per se cannot save the world or save the issues which we are facing in terms of climate change. 18% of the energy is electricity in the world, and that can be solved with renewable energy, solar or wind. But beyond that 18%, 82% of energy is still not electrical. And to solve that, today in a cleaner way, hydrogen is the only way. You have to use all your renewable energy and add more to create hydrogen as a gas and use it in rest of the 82%, which is dependent on fossil fuel, whether it is oil or gas or any other natural gas and other fossil fuel. I think that is a simple logic. To solve the 82% of the fossil fuel dependent energy use case, the solar or wind cannot solve it standalone. It has to go for hydrogen.
Okay, and Kai, since you also spoke about hydrogen, what would you tell Elon Musk on that statement from him? You're on mute, sorry, just.
Now it works. So pretty much the same like Mr. John, because I just explained, if you just look at a plane with its weight will be impossible to be flown just by electric motors, for example. So you need a combustible. This combustible will be from power to accus. So of course you're gonna use renewable energies, but you will have to create this synthetic fuel, for example. The same for probably for locomotive. So the same for chemical industries, etc. So hydrogen definitely will be one part, and but like I also pointed out before, it's only an energy carrier. So we always have to think about it that, of course, for the production of this required energy transition, also regarding fuels, we need incredible amount of renewable energy. And so for that, I think also regarding any constraints regarding areas and so on, this decentralized approach will be the clue, and in all countries with area, with solar radiation, with wind potential, of course, will have a very good position in the future economic progress.
Okay, thank you, Kai. Mr. Srivastava, for you, one question. There are still cheap imports from China flooding the market, not only the Indian market, it's basically happening on the entire world. What can be done, especially in the solar sector, that made in India products become more competitive? You're on mute, or you are muted. Organizers, please unmute every panelist so we don't have to request you to do that.
Well, thank you. Now I can speak for myself. So very interesting, in fact, when I heard about the question on Elon Musk about what he thinks about hydrogen, actually it is horses for courses. Yes, might be true about using hydrogen in lightweight cars, but there is no substitution for hydrogen in industries and in heavy vehicles. So anyway, coming from that perspective, the answer again lies in what we call the horses for courses. So it's not just about Chinese imports. See, at the end of it, every country, there is something which is required to sustain the ecosystem of local manufacturing, which has to have something called policy consistency, which is very important. Secondly, patience of all the stakeholders. And third is sustainable demand. The Indian renewable energy sector also has a huge problem in terms of sustainable demand. And that's where your question is very pertinent, that even when the policy is for local manufacturing, the moment you allow for certain projects or certain categories imports to happen, it takes away the entire momentum that is being built towards meeting the demand. What should be done? It is in three parts. Number one, all the stakeholders, be it the government, the manufacturers, the users, need to look at how sustainable is this steroidal dose of periodic injection of Chinese modules, etc. Because at the end of it, it is not going to sustain. The second part of it is the cost metrics of the solar supply chain are heavily skewed in favor of China, be it in terms of the scale, be it in terms of the policy support and in terms of the monetary support. So there is going to be a period when the world will have to live with this kind of upheaval. It is a matter of 2 to 3 years before supply chains, and I think COVID was a precursor to that. No longer is everybody looking at China plus one. There are people who are looking at one plus China. So this gradual transition will take another 18 to 24 months, and I'm very confident that this question might probably get answered by itself then.
Okay, thank you so much. Looking at the time, I unfortunately have to close already our panel discussion. I really liked it. I especially liked the brainstorming activity. I think it's very interesting to see how different the minds of everyone work, and there were, I think, very interesting impulses that everyone can take away also. I hope our attendees and our audience liked our session today. Thank you so much to our panelists and to our speakers for taking the time to such a late hour in India. I think apart from Kai, everyone sits today in India, and I think we all deserve now a good evening drink. Sundowner is already too late. So thank you so much for your time and for participating today.
Danke.
Danke. Bye.
Thank you.